The wind carried the faint smell of rain over the wheat fields, rattling the old wooden fences that leaned like weary sentinels along the dirt road. It was a Sunday morning, and the village of Kuiper wore its usual silence. Roosters, the occasional motorbike, a distant hammer striking against corrugated tin. Yet when Saeed's dog, Kala, stopped dead near the abandoned well at the edge of the fields, the air itself seemed to harden. His ears pricked, tail rigid, eyes fixed on the black circle of stone that no one dared go near after dark. A chill crept up Saeed's arms. He told himself it was nothing, but the village would soon learn it was everything. And before I continue, if you like unsettling, slow-burn mysteries told with care, stories that breathe and make you feel the dirt, the silence, the secrets, consider staying with me. These stories matter more when someone's listening. Saeed Qureshi lived on the far end of Kuiper, where the fields ran up against the hills and the roads stopped pretending to be roads. He was 41, his face lined from years in the sun, his hands hardened by work, his heart softened only by Kala, the black Mongol who followed him everywhere. That morning, he had gone out to check on his irrigation pump. The old well, sealed decades ago, sat 30 paces from the canal. Nobody used it anymore. Children were told never to play there. The stones were crumbling, and stories about it ran deeper than water. Kala had tried ahead, sniffing the dust, but when he reached the well he froze. Not a twitch, not a sound. His body went rigid like stone. "What is it, boy?" Saeed frowned. The dog growled low, backing up a step, fur bristling. He sniffed again, then barked once, sharp, frantic. Saeed stepped closer, uneasy. He had grown up hearing tales. A girl who had fallen in and never come out, whispers about night cries that echoed in the harvest months. But old wells and old stories belonged to a time he no longer believed in. He put a hand on the crumbling rim. The stone was cold, too cold. He leaned over, squinting into the darkness below. He expected nothing but the dry hollow of stone. Instead, the faint glimmer of something pale caught his eye. A hand. Saeed's stomach lurched. He stumbled back, nearly tripping over Kala, who barked with manic fury now. His breath came shallow, and for the first time in years, he felt like a boy again, caught between fear and disbelief. He spat into the dust, steadying himself. No, can't be. But he knew what he'd seen. By afternoon, the police had arrived in a battered van, their siren uselessly blaring in a village that had no traffic to clear. Inspector Farouk stepped out first, a thick man with thinning hair, the kind whose authority came less from rank and more from the weary heaviness in his eyes. He was no stranger to bodies, but he preferred them in the city, neatly reported, paperwork stacked, corruption quietly arranged. Villages, though, were different. Here, everything smelled of secrets. Where? Farouk asked curtly. Saeed pointed. Down there. I didn't touch it. Kala paced nearby, restless, as a policeman dragged a rope ladder from the van. Villagers had already gathered, men with shawls draped around their shoulders, women peering from a distance, children craning necks until their mothers pulled them back. Rumors darted through the air like flies. Farouk ordered 2 constables down. The rope creaked, boots scraped against stone, and the villagers held their breath. Minutes passed. A crow landed on the stone rim, cocking its head as if waiting. Then came the shout from below. There's a body. The crowd erupted. Women covered their mouths. Men cursed under their breath. Saeed felt his chest tighten. He had hoped, stupidly, that maybe it was a trick of the light, a sack of rags. Anything but this. The constables hauled upward, their grunts echoing. Slowly, a shape rose into the light. Tangled hair, cloth soaked and dark, arms stiff at unnatural angles. A young woman. Gasps. Someone whispered a prayer. The corpse was laid on the dirt. Mud clung to her skin. Her lips parted as if frozen mid-breath. Farouk crouched, squinting. She couldn't have been more than 25. Anyone recognize her? He asked. Silence. Only the buzz of flies beginning their work. But Saeed noticed something. A ring on her finger. Simple silver, scuffed by time. His stomach dropped again. He had seen it before. Farouk glanced at him. You, farmer, you know her? Saeed hesitated. His mouth dried. He wanted to deny it, to walk away, to not be tangled in this. But lies sat poorly on his tongue. I think she was Shazia. The crowd murmured louder. Shazia. The name carried weight in the village. She had been missing for 6 months. Some said she had eloped. Others whispered darker things. Her father had searched for weeks before giving up, his grief twisting into bitterness that soured the entire household. Now here she was. Farouk exhaled through his nose. God help us. He stood, brushing dust from his knees, and addressed the villagers. Nobody leaves. We'll be asking questions. The crowd shifted uneasily. In Kuiper, questions were more dangerous than bullets. That evening, the body was taken to the small police outpost on the edge of town. Farouk lit a cigarette outside, staring into the dusk. He didn't trust villages. They looked simple on the surface. But peel back the quiet, and you always found rot. Affairs, land disputes, grudges passed down like heirlooms. Saeed lingered nearby, Kala at his feet. He had tried to return home, but the image of that pale hand wouldn't leave him. Farouk finally spoke. How well did you know her? Saeed looked away. Everyone knew everyone here. She was just a girl. That ring you noticed. Farouk tapped Ash into the dust. You're sure it was hers? I've seen her wear it. At the well, fetching water. Years ago. Farouk studied him, eyes narrowing. Years ago, that well was already closed. Saeed's throat tightened. He realized what he had admitted. Too much, too soon. He cursed himself silently. Farouk didn't press. Not yet. But his silence was worse than any question. Inside, the corpse lay on a steel cot, wrapped in a sheet. The night wind moaned through broken shutters. And in the village, whispers began to swell about the well, about Saeed, about who had wanted Shazia gone. The well had given something back, but it had taken something too, the village's fragile peace. And Saeed knew, deep down, that Kala's growl had been more than instinct. It had been a warning. The night after Shazia's body was found, Kuiper did not sleep. Lanterns burned late in mud brick homes. Shutters rattled as hushed conversations swelled and broke, and stray dogs barked at nothing. The fields were still, but inside the village, the air was thick. Fear, gossip, anger, grief. Everyone wanted to know, how had she ended up in the well? Who had put her there? At the tea stall near the mosque, men sat in silence over steaming cups, their words weighed down by suspicion. The women gathered on courtyards, speaking in low tones, their voices sharp with the sting of betrayal. Children clung to their mothers, sensing something monstrous in the air but too young to name it. And in a small house on the edge of the fields, Saeed stared at the cracked ceiling. Kala curled against his boots. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that pale hand, the silver ring. Worse, he remembered Shazia alive, her quick smile, her sharp laugh. He remembered, too, the time she'd stood at his gate, when no one else was watching. The next morning, Inspector Farouk summoned Saeed to the outpost. The small police station smelled of dust and stale sweat. Its walls were yellowed, a single ceiling fan wobbling overhead. Farouk sat behind a desk stacked with files, though Saeed guessed most of them were never read. You were the one who saw her first, Farouk said. His tone was calm, almost conversational, but his eyes were sharp. Tell me again. From the beginning. Saeed repeated his story. The dog, the well, the glimmer of a hand. You didn't touch the body? No. You recognized her ring immediately. Strange, after 6 months gone. Saeed shifted uneasily. I just remembered. That's all. Farouk leaned back in his chair. You remember too much, farmer, and yet not enough. Silence stretched. The inspector drummed his fingers on the desk. Finally, he asked, Were you close to her? Saeed's throat tightened. Close? No. She was young. I have my work, my land. But the hesitation betrayed him. Farouk smiled faintly, the kind of smile that cut deeper than anger. Villages talk, Qureshi. Whispers travel faster than your irrigation water. Shazia was seen with you more than once. People say she laughed at your gate. What do you think her father would say to that? Saeed clenched his fists. People talk when they have nothing better to do. She was like a younger sister. A younger sister you watched at the well, years after it was closed? Farouk's voice dropped lower. You slipped, Qureshi. Don't think I missed it. Kala growled from under the chair. Farouk shot the dog a look, then chuckled humorlessly. Even your animal knows when you're lying. Saeed's face burned. He wanted to lunge across the table, to shut the inspector's smug mouth. Instead, he swallowed his anger. Believe what you want. I told you what I saw. Farouk stubbed his cigarette out on the desk, leaving a black scar on the wood. Get out, but don't go far. We'll need you again. As Saeed walked back to the bazaar, he felt the weight of eyes on him. Every corner, every doorway, someone was watching. Old men pretended to sip tea. Women paused at their laundry. Children pointed and whispered. They think I did it. The thought gnawed at him, and worse. Part of him wondered if they were right to suspect. Not that he had killed Shazia. No, but he had wanted her. He had let her linger at his gate, had let himself look too long, had let her laughter stir something inside him he thought he'd buried years ago. Desire was not murder, but in a village like Kuiper, it was close enough. When he reached his fields, he found someone waiting at his gate. Shazia's father. Imran Malik was a tall, gaunt man, his beard gone mostly gray, his eyes sunken from grief. He stood rigid, hand behind his back, as if he'd been waiting for hours. You found her, Imran said. His voice was flat, without emotion. Saeed nodded cautiously. Yes, the dog. I don't care about the dog. Imran stepped closer, his face lined with years of bitterness. Tell me the truth. How long were you with her before she disappeared? Saeed felt a flare of anger. I wasn't with her. She laughed with you. Everyone saw. Don't lie. Laughing is not a crime. But hiding her in a well is... Imran's voice sharpened like a blade. Saeed's fist tightened. You think I killed her? She was your daughter. Maybe you should look closer to home. Imran's face twisted, and for a moment Saeed thought the man would strike him. Instead, Imran spat into the dirt at Saeed's feet. If the police won't give me justice, I will. He turned and walked away, his figure bent against the sun. Kala barked after him, but Saeed's heart hammered with unease. In a place like Kuiper, vengeance could come quicker than law. That night, a storm rolled over the village. Thunder cracked across the fields, rain lashed against tin roofs, and the well outside Saeed's land filled with the smell of wet earth and something else. Something metallic, foul, rising from its depths. Kala barked endlessly, scratching at the door, restless and afraid. Unable to sleep, Saeed poured himself tea and sat in silence, listening to the storm. He thought of Shazia's face, of Imran's threat, of Farouk's suspicion. He thought, too, of a memory he had tried to bury. The last night he had seen her alive. She had come to his gate, eyes wide, voice trembling. They'll kill me, Saeed, she had whispered. You don't understand. I saw something. Something I wasn't supposed to. He had tried to calm her, told her she was being dramatic, that no one cared enough to kill a village girl. She had shaken her head, tears cutting lines down her cheeks. You don't know what I saw, she had said. Please, promise me. If anything happens, don't let them bury me in silence. And then she had run, her dupatta trailing like a ghost in the night. Saeed had never seen her again. Until the well. The memory burned like fire in his chest. He hadn't told Farouk this. He hadn't told anyone. He should have. But to speak it aloud meant to invite suspicion, to pull himself into something bigger than he could control. The storm raged on. Outside, Kala barked again, this time toward the well. Saeed's blood ran cold. He stepped on the veranda, rain soaking his shirt in seconds. The dog stood rigid, growling, his eyes fixed on the well. And in the lightning's flash, Saeed thought, just for a moment, that he saw a figure standing at its rim, watching. He blinked. Another flash. The figure was gone. Only the crumbling stones remained, slick with rain. By morning, the storm had passed, but word spread quickly. Inspector Farouk had found something in Shazia's clothes. A folded piece of paper, pressed deep into the seam of her camise. A note. It was nearly illegible, washed and blurred, but one line was clear enough. If I disappear, ask about the Malik Fields. The Malik Fields. Imran's land. The revelation exploded like fire through the village. Some said it meant Imran had killed his own daughter. Others whispered about land disputes, debts, rivalries that ran deeper than blood. But one thing was certain. The whispers no longer swirled solely around Saeed. That afternoon, Farouk gathered the villagers near the mosque. His voice carried over the restless crowd. This is no simple crime. The girl left a clue, and I intend to follow it. But know this, whoever is guilty, whoever thinks they can hide behind silence and superstition, will be dragged into the light. Murmurs rippled. Eyes darted. Suspicion shifted like sand. Imran stood at the edge of the crowd, his face unreadable. When his gaze met Saeed's, it lingered, cold, unyielding, but with something else beneath it. Fear. That night, Saeed dreamed of the well. He dreamed of Shazia, her hair tangled, her lips moving in words he couldn't hear. She pointed, always pointed, toward the Malik Fields, toward something buried. When he woke, his sheets were damp with sweat. Kala whined softly to the side, and dawn bled red across the horizon. Something was waiting in those fields. Something worse than a body in a well. The Malik Fields stretched wide under the bruised morning sky, their wheat stalks bent and beaten from the storm. Mud clung to boots, water pooled in furrows, and crows dotted the land like omens. By the time Inspector Farouk reached the fields with 2 constables and half the village trailing behind, it felt less like an investigation and more like a reckoning. Saeed kept to the back, Kala at his heels. He hadn't wanted to come, but he couldn't stay away either. Something inside him demanded to know what Shazia had seen, what she had meant when she whispered, "They'll kill me." Imran Malik stood stiffly in front of his fields, jaw clenched, arms crossed over his chest. His sons flanked him, hard-eyed young men who had inherited their father's bitterness and none of his restraint. Farouk faced him calmly. "Your daughter left us a message. She wanted us to look here." "Why?" Imran's lips curled. "Because she was young and foolish. She thought everything was a mystery. You city men don't understand. People say things before they die. It doesn't make them true." But Farouk's gaze lingered on the ground, on the patches of soil churned by storm and shovel alike. Maybe she knew something she wasn't supposed to. The villagers pressed closer, murmurs rising. Fear and curiosity tangled in the air. Everyone wanted to see the soil give up its secrets. Farouk gestured to his men. "Dig." The shovel struck mud, slicing through roots, tossing clumps aside. The earth smelled of rain, rot, and something older, fouler. Kala barked once, sharp, then paced in circles, hackles raised. Minutes passed. Then a constable froze, his shovel catching on something solid. "Sir." They crouched, brushing mud aside with bare hands. Wood. Splintered, damp, but unmistakable. A box. The villagers surged forward, their voices climbing. Some shouted prayers, others curses. Imran stepped forward, face paling. "Stop. That's nothing, old storage." Farouk cut him off. "Open it." The constables pried at the lid. It groaned, then gave way. The stench at them first. Sickly sweet, unmistakable. Flies swarmed as the box yawned open. Inside, wrapped in burlap and half-rotted cloth, lay bones. Dozens of them. Skulls, femurs, ribs, all jumbled together. Stained dark by soil and time. A scream tore from the crowd. Women wailed. Men cursed aloud. Children were dragged away. Imran staggered back, his sons clutching his arms as if to keep him upright. His face had drained of all color. Farouk stood over the pit, his cigarette trembling slightly between his fingers. His voice, when it came, was low and deliberate. "This is no simple murder. This is a graveyard." Chaos broke loose. Villagers shouted accusations, some at Imran, others at his rivals. Old grudges bubbled to the surface, arguments reigniting in the charged air. But Saeed barely heard them. His ears rang, his stomach churned, his eyes fixed on the bones. He remembered Shazia's words. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to." Now he knew These weren't just Shazia's remains. There were too many. Farouk barked orders, his constables pushing the crowd back, but it was like trying to stop a flood with bare hands. Saeed felt himself pulled forward, his boots sliding in the mud until he stood at the edge of the pit. Collar whined, pulling at his trousers. The dog wanted to leave, but Saeed couldn't. His gaze locked on something glinting in the pile of bones. He crouched, hand trembling as he reached. A chain. Silver. A locket, mud-stained but intact. He wiped it clean with his thumb. Inside, under the glass, was a faded photograph. A young woman. Not Shazia. Someone else. And then Saeed remembered. 10 years ago, a girl from the next village had vanished. Her family had searched, wailed at mosques, cursed at fate. Nothing had ever been found. Until now, the pit was not Shazia's grave. It was a secret cemetery. Enough! Imran's voice cracked like thunder. He stepped forward, shaking off his sons. His face twisted with rage, grief, something darker. This is my land. You have no right to dig it open. Farouk turned slowly, his expression carved from stone. Your daughter led us here. She knew, and now we all know. I never, Imran's voice faltered. His hands trembled. His eyes darted to the villagers, to his sons, then to Saeed, who still held the locket. For a moment, the entire village seemed to hold its breath. Then one of Imran's sons spoke. Too quickly, too harshly. It was him. He pointed straight at Saeed. He planted this. He killed Shazia and put her in the well to throw blame at us. The crowd gasped, head swiveling. Fingers pointed. Whispers swelled. Saeed felt the ground tilt beneath him. That's a lie. But Farouk's gaze was fixed not on Saeed nor on the son, but on Imran himself. The old man's face had crumbled, sweat shining on his brow, despite the cool morning. Finally, Imran spoke. His voice was low, broken. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Silence. My father started it. Imran whispered. During the partition, men were killed, women taken. The bodies, he buried them here. Told us to keep the land clean, to keep the past buried. And when the years passed, others came. People who vanished. Enemies. Debtors. They all ended here. His eyes lifted, hollow and wet. I wanted to stop. I swear to God, I wanted to. But once blood touches your land, it never lets go. Shazia, she found the box. She knew. The crowd erupted in horror. Some cursed, some prayed, some wept openly. Saeed's chest clenched. The girl who had come to his gate that night, begging him to believe her. She had been right, and he had turned her away. He had failed her. The constable seized Imran as his son struggled, cursing, spitting. Villagers surged forward, some shouting for justice, others demanding blood on the spot. Farouk raised his pistol skyward and fired once, the cracks slicing through chaos. Enough, he bellowed. There will be no mob justice here. The law will decide. But even as he said it, everyone knew the law meant little in Kuiper. What mattered was what people believed, and they had seen enough to never forget. That night, the village was quieter than it had ever been. No laughter, no arguments, no music drifting from the courtyards. Only silence, heavy and suffocating. Saeed sat on his veranda, Kala at his side. He couldn't shake Shazia's face from his mind, her laughter, her tears, her plea. If anything happens, don't let them bury me in silence. She hadn't been buried in silence, but the truth had come at a cost he couldn't bear. Farouk visited him before leaving for the city. Imran and his sons chained the back of the police van. You're lucky, the inspector said quietly. The mob would have torn you apart if Malik hadn't broken. You should thank him for that. Saeed said nothing. Farouk lit a cigarette, his eyes glinting in the dark. You carry guilt for not protecting her. Don't. We all fail someone. The only question is whether we live with it or let it eat us. Then he was gone, the van's taillights vanishing down the dirt road. The days that followed were uneasy. Fields went untended, whispers spread, trust frayed. Some villagers spoke of leaving, of abandoning land cursed by old blood. Others swore to purify it with prayers, with fire, with anything that might erase a stain. Saeed worked silently, avoiding the mosque, the bazaar. Kala stayed close, watchful, restless. And one evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Saeed walked to the well. He stood at its rim, staring down into the darkness where Shazia had been hidden. The air smelled faintly of earth, of rain, of memory. "I'm sorry," he whispered. His voice trembled. "You came to me, you trusted me, and I turned you away." Kala whined softly, pressing against his leg. Saeed closed his eyes. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of distant prayers, of a village still struggling to make peace with what had been unearthed. He knew it would never fully heal. Neither would he. But at least Shazia's secret was no longer buried. And sometimes, in a world of silence and soil, that was the closest thing to justice anyone could hope for.